瞬间一个栩栩如生的美男就出现在了你面前。
Oh God, what is that? That is not a lifelike and beautiful man, dude. That is a woman. Fake versus natural. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no.
Lines in different directions to help you with form. And my favorite is boxes to help with perspective and understanding 3D shapes. And my least favorite, cylinders. Same reason as the box.
What's up guys, welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at some art tutorials from TikTok to hopefully expand the size of our small, smooth brains. That being said, every time I've done one of these videos, I've gotten a little bit dumber and lost about a year off of my lifespan. But who knows, maybe this time it's different.
How can we give this drawing more life? This drawing comes to us by way of Malicious Pig, who says it's one of their first portraits.
I'll be real with you, I don't know if this drawing needs more life. I think she's seen enough life. She's traumatized. It's time to put it out of its misery, man. Just delete the canvas. Holy shit.
If I go ahead and draw her skull here, you'll notice that much of it is missing. I can tell that this is where it's supposed to go because our eyes should be about halfway between the top of the head and the chin. After I've laid in a quick restructuring, I'm also going to move this neck all the way back here to where it comes from below the ear and then also below this near eye. Okay, let's repaint that. And that looks so good.
Oh God. Okay, you know what? Trust the process.
Pull this chin in just a little bit, as well as adding the far side of the nose, which I do believe we would see from this angle. Also, people accuse me of removing monolids a lot, but I think in this case, monolid was maybe more of an accident, but that's just a guess, so the original artist can let me know. Next, I'm going to touch up these eyes, adding a couple of highlights in here just to give them a little bit of extra life, and just like that, I think this drawing is pretty much good to go. The original drawing was pretty good, but it did need a little bit of work. Alright, so with that being said, I hope you guys appreciate the before versus after here.
Wow, okay, I can't believe my eyes. He actually did it. This actually looks really good, I'm not gonna lie. At first, I didn't really trust the process because the initial repainted position of the neck is just absolutely horrendous. She looks like she's pulling one of these, you know? Oh. Oh God, I think I pulled something. That's a 10 out of 10. Good job, Ken.
Do you think there's something odd about this person?
Oh my God, it's a Chinese tutorial, guys. It's time to lock in.
Son?
It's the eyes.
Yes, the perspective of the eyes is off. So how exactly should we draw the perspective of the eyes? First, think of the shape of the eye as a quadrilateral. The 4 points are the top and bottom of the eye socket, the inner corner and the outer corner. No matter how the perspective changes, you need to make sure these 4 points are on the same arc. But you need to note that the perspective of the eyes isn't on a flat plane, but rather on a curved surface. Draw the quadrilateral according to the perspective of the curved surface, then add the thickness of the eyelids. Now take a look at this plate with me. The inside of the plate represents the iris, and the bottom of the plate represents the pupil. Now, if you apply this to the eye, you'll notice that the pupil, following the perspective of the plate's recessed bottom, will be closer to the left side. Now you get it, right? Don't draw the pupil in the center of the iris anymore. It makes the eyes look bulging. This is the correct way to do it. Once you've drawn the pupil, refine the eyelashes and the double eyelid, also following their perspective, and that's how you finish drawing a pair of eyes.
What an absolute Chinese legend. Broke that down so friggin' well. You guys see this analogy of the plate representing the shape of the iris? That's actually one of my favorite ways to think of the iris as well. But I'm thinking of it like in the way that you light the iris, right? Like if the plate is concave, meaning it's caving inwards, right? When the light is coming from the top, that means the bottom half of that circle is going to be catching the light and the top half is going to be dark. And that's what our eyes look like. That's what makes our eyes look so liquid and shiny and juicy. Freaking Chinese 10 out of 10. Sure out of 10.
The reason why your art sucks is because you don't warm up. Alright, I'm kidding. But warm-ups are my cheat code. And here's some of my favorites. Lines in different directions to help with my line control. Circles to warm up my wrist. Curved lines in different directions to help you with form. And my favorite is boxes to help with perspective and understanding 3D shapes. And my least favorite, cylinders. Same reason as the box. And I try to do this before any sketch session, so my sketches turn out the way that I like.
See, this is a good video to me because warm-up is always a good idea, especially if you're somebody who's a little bit stiff. You find it really hard to just get straight into the rhythm of drawing. It helps to loosen up your wrist a little bit with some simple circles, some lines, and some boxes. 10 out of 10.
3 ways to add texture to your digital painting. 1. Noise layer. Create a new layer, fill with 50% gray. Go to filter, noise, add noise, set the amount to 50%. Set layer mode to overlay and lower the opacity to 10%. This adds subtle, consistent texture to unify your painting. 2. Watercolor paper texture. Drag a watercolor paper image above your painting, set layer mode to multiply and adjust opacity. This gives an organic tactile feel like traditional paper. 3. Textured brush. Create a new layer, set to multiply, use a textured brush to stamp or paint lightly. Adjust opacity to taste. This simulates traditional media without overpowering colors.
You know what's crazy is I've been working in Photoshop for so long and I've always kind of wondered, how do you add a noise layer like you can in Procreate? Because Procreate makes it so easy to add noise and texture, and you're telling me this entire time the option to add noise was just under my nose, like in a menu that I'm always visiting? Oh my God, I'm so stupid. Amazing. That's a good tip. That's a tip that I'm actually going to use. My next drawing is going to be very noisy. Just like all you guys, you little gremlins, you just yipping and yapping, yammering away. You just never shut up. 10 out of 10.
We use the value scale to light and shade our art. But there's so many choices. How do you know what's right? So here's 5 values you need to know. First, define 2 ranges, one for light, one for shadow. They don't have to be equal. The important thing is they're kept separate. Next step, pick an average value within those ranges. One light, one shadow. More contrast is more friendly for beginners. I'm sketching here from imagination using just those 2 values. The next value is called halftone. Halftone turns form within the light family. The cheek plane and the jaw plane are both in light, but the jaw is turned away from the light a little bit. To choose a halftone, start with your average light value and go just a hair darker. I'll put halftones into my painting here. Now it's time for reflected light. It's just a hair lighter than our average shadow. This value represents the indirect light that bounces around the scene. Reflected light is weaker than direct light, so it only shows up in shadow. But what happens in the areas of shadow where there's less reflected light? That's called ambient occlusion. It's your darkest value. The reflected light is occluded, or blocked, typically in tight spaces. So that's where I'm putting this value. And there you go, a 5-value structure you can bring to basically any painting.
Look, Marco Bucci never misses. He's hands down one of the best art educators out there. And this is such a good, simple way to break down the value structure, especially for somebody who might be a little bit overwhelmed and not as familiar with how values actually work. But regardless of how much you guys might like color, I do always recommend beginners to try to learn values first and get a good grasp on that before you get too far ahead of yourself when it comes to color rendering. One of the main reasons that I felt I was able to pick up painting very quickly when I was younger was because I started off with learning values and how to draw with graphite. 11 out of 10, man. Incredible work.
Instead of trying to find that center line of the face, which is what I used to do and what you're usually told to do, instead what I'm going to do, this might sound crazy, is I'm going to find the side plane of the head by applying some nice little zigzag forms there. And some ways you can think about the rhythms here too, is you can imagine these curvatures on the plane, and these are going to create some nice shorthands for you. Split it in half, and lo and behold, plane change, nose, mouth, head.
I love that. You know what? That is such a refreshing take on how to draw the shape of the head, because I do notice that with a lot of beginners, when they're placing the center line on the front of the face, they tend to misplace it because it doesn't really match up with the angle of the nose ridge or the various planes on the front of the lips. But this method seems to take the actual shape of the front of the face into account, which is kind of cool. 9 out of 10. I just might try this out as well.
A common mistake artists make when drawing the head using the circle is placing the jaw at the edges. If we look at the skull from above, we can see that the circle touches the front and back of the skull, but it doesn't touch the sides. From the front, it's the same thing. It touches the top, but the sides are flat. It's technically not wrong to make the jaw touch the sides, but if you're gonna do that from the front, you have to do it in perspective as well. To fix this mistake, we first draw the sphere, then we make sure that the jaw doesn't touch the sides of the sphere, and then we draw the rest of the face.
Now, he is completely right in saying that the side of the jaw doesn't actually attach to the side of the circle, but in general, when you're looking at, let's say, a Loomis head method, or just how a pro might perceive the shape of the head, they usually shave off the sides of the circle. And this is something that I would do for my drawings as well. I don't perceive the shape of the cranium as a perfect circle. I cut the sides off a little bit. I make the sides a little more squished. So this is kind of right and wrong at the same time, because if you're going to shrink the jaw in, you also want to shrink the side of the head in, because if you look at the side of the jaw, it's got a pretty smooth trajectory up to the side of the skull. 5 out of 10. This is half right.
先画一个躯干，然后放入一个馒头。聪明的你有没有发现一块胸肌就出来了？聪明的你不小心一手滑，继续把馒头复制粘贴，把另一边胸肌也贴出来了。细心的你还分出了腹肌的大小结构。出所有馒头涂层合并，然后降低涂层透明度，开始光线，瞬间一个栩栩如生的美男就出现在了你面前。
Oh God, what is that? That is not a lifelike and beautiful man, dude. That is a woman. I understand this concept because you do want to think of these muscle structures as three-dimensional shapes laying on top of the form of the body, but they're not this three-dimensional, okay? These are boobs. If you ever seen a pec, it's a little more flat. 2 out of 10. The idea was good, but the execution was about as effective as the contraception your parents used when they conceived you.
The best art tutorials and art tips you will find on the internet are entirely in Chinese. Listen, I don't make the rules. I just play the game.
And we just proved that wrong, guys. So There it is. So not every Chinese person is right, okay? Don't always listen to the Chinese.
Do you get flustered when shading relationships, we previously deal with the light and dark variations. Let the stripes blend into the volume of the tie, and it's done. I am Meow Meow.
Thank you, Meow Meow. But you know what, guys? I think this process is a really good example of the importance of starting off simple, starting off with the big shapes. Notice how in the very beginning, he starts off with only 2 flat colors on the vest, no blending, and it's only after you've established the placement of the shadows and the shapes of the shadows do you start adding smaller details like the wrinkles and the blending, soft and hard edges, and then the next step on top of that is you add a light color and a dark color. Once you break it down into these simple steps, it's actually very, very easy to approach. 10 out of 10. Thank you, Meow Meow.
Have you ever wondered how these amazing artists are able to render so many different...
It's me! Look, it's me in the middle. Thank you. Oh my god, you think I'm an amazing artist? That's so nice of you. Thank you.
Are able to render so many different types of materials so flawlessly? It's value. Value is simply how light or dark a color is. It's what transforms a flat-looking shape into a 3D object. If your values are correct, if your lights are bright and your shadows are deep, then you can just add on the colors once you finish the value. So let's put it into practice instead. This time on a simple apple. We're starting in grayscale so we can focus entirely on value. Step 1. Look at the reference. Draw in that shadow using either a lasso tool or a brush. Step 2. Look at where the light is coming from, where it hits in the reference of the apple, and draw it in. Remember, whatever you're trying to draw is just different planes when you simplify it. Now for the midtones. This is the transition. I'm blending the light into the dark. It's the in-between gray that makes the surface look curved and soft. Also adding shadows into the shadows to give it more detail. See that? We went from a flat blob to an apple just by following the light. Added a bit of texture at the end for appeal, but all the work was done by the value.
Now, I do agree that values are very important to learn, and once you get your values right, it's much easier to approach colors as well. But I personally don't always start off with values and then add colors on top of it. That's not always my workflow. I usually just go straight into colors. Hypothetically, if you did want to try something like this and add colors to a value drawing, this piece right here in the middle, what worked there is I started off with a grayscale layer underneath and I added an overlay layer on top, and on that overlay layer I picked out the colors that I wanted to use for this drawing, and I just found overlay probably the easiest for me personally to work with when it comes to adding colors on top of a grayscale painting. 8 out of 10. Good job.
Stop using grayscale unless you do it this way. First you...
See, this is the problem with TikTok, is like you learn one thing and then in the next video, somebody tells you to stop doing that thing. So if you just keep consuming and consuming, you just end up confused and you become like me, old, senile.
I need a sketch, then block the composition value so the character pops. Next, I add local values because every color actually has a different value. And then I add the light values in the same layer of each color. And this is why your painting looks flat. It's bounce light. Don't forget to do it because it makes your art looks 3D. Now let's add some color. If you use color layer mode, no wonder it looks bad. Use graded map instead. It lets you change color without repainting everything. But graded map can ruin your value, so don't forget to check the value again. And I choose color based on these rules. If you want a strong color, make the light saturated, and shadow becomes gray or desaturated. But if the color is already desaturated, flip the rule. Saturated shadow, desaturated light to create dramatic light. So
I feel like this was made by a kid whose brain works a little too fast for me. I don't think I gathered anything from that just now. I'm gonna give this kid an 8 out of 10. I feel like she's trying her best, okay? You're doing a good job. You're just a little too fast for me. You're like a little house centipede scurrying across the floor. I cannot catch you. I cannot keep up with you.
I learned an easier way to render this lighting effect, and now I will teach it to you. First, lay in your flat colors. Now make a new layer, set it to multiply, and start painting in the shadows. Follow as I do or use your own reference.
Sure, okay. Yeah.
Jingle, jingle.
No, Why is this like blasting anime music in my ear, bro?
Then make another layer, set that to screen, and use a soft airbrush to add in some light. Next, reverse the lighting by making the screen layer multiply and the multiply layer screen. You can easily change the color of the lighting shadows by turning on alpha lock and using the fill tool. Now you could stop here, or you could make an overlay and glow dodge layer to make the colors pop a bit more, and you're done.
Okay, well, I guess the concept kind of works because you would just assume wherever there's a light source and it casts a shadow, if you just invert the light source, the shadow can become the light like it is here. But it doesn't actually work now, does it? When you're adding a multiply layer, you're adding a shadow into the darker regions of the face. And what are some of the darker regions of the face? Look at my nostrils, look at my ear holes, right? These are dark areas. These are ambiently occluded areas that don't receive any light. So if you add a shadow into my nostril and then you just invert it, next thing you know, I have a bright glowing nostril, and it doesn't work. And you can kind of see that happening here on the inside of the ear. Like the inside of the ear should not be bright in this lighting scenario. God, these kids, man. 5 out of 10. Rendering tutorial. That's an X. Okay. That's not an X, dude. That's just flashlighting. Okay, and this is supposed to be the correct version. Now, again, this is why I don't like the X's and checks tutorials, because they're a little bit too absolutist. This X example, believe it or not, is the perfect way to render flash lighting, okay? If you look at the flash pieces that I painted in the past, they always look like this, right? Darker around the edges, brighter in the center, because your light source is directly where you're viewing the painting from. I would have given this one a pass if you had just included a little bit more hard edges on the rendering here, but unfortunately, there were no hard edges. 5 out of 10.
My biggest piece of advice for beginner artists like myself is to stop zooming in when painting. Start with the biggest, flattest brush you have and work it to a smaller brush. As you can see, my drawing looks fine when you look at it from the sides, but when you zoom in, you notice all the imperfections. If you focus on rendering up close and with a small brush, you can leave the colors looking muddy. Your art doesn't need to be perfect to be interesting.
Honestly, great piece of advice. This is something that I used to suffer from as well. This kind of perfectionist mindset, wanting to zoom into every little small part of your painting and make it look perfect. When in reality, all of that zooming in is actually making you lose sight of the bigger picture. I love that advice. That's a nice, simple, easily applicable way to defeat your inner perfectionist. And that's a great drawing. Now, I don't know why TikTok has decided to label this video as containing AI generated media. That's got to be a false label, right? Because what part of this is AI generated? I don't see it. 10 out of 10, man. Good job. Fake versus natural. Oh no. Oh no. What are we doing here, guys? No freaking way. Okay, well, that's unfortunate. I guess everybody who has big boobs, you're fake. Okay, for the real one, you want to reverse hard. Oh. Both exist. Yeah, that's perfect. That's it. That's all you need to say to this. But you know what? Instead of saying one is fake and one is natural, you could maybe use this tutorial and this method to apply different body shapes and different shape language to your characters. The right side up heart maybe is a base shape for somebody who's a little bit more voluptuous, and the upside down heart is for somebody who's a little bit less voluptuous. And it doesn't have to be fake or natural, you know. People come in all different shapes and sizes, and there's beauty to that. You know, if everyone looked exactly the same, well, that would be really boring now, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be? If you just take out the fake and natural accusations, this is a 10 out of 10. But as it is, 4 out of 10. All right, guys, congratulations. We have just successfully reduced our lifespan by 1 more year. It's a good thing, really. I'll be seeing you guys in heaven 1 year sooner. I hope you guys learned something new from this video, and if you didn't, I hope you were entertained. Please subscribe to my channel if you guys want to see more art-related content. Check out my Patreon for monthly tutorials. In this month's tutorial, we are actually talking about the differences between male and female facial structures. So if you're somebody who struggles a lot with that, maybe all your characters tend to look the same, there's some really good methods in this new tutorial to help you guys out and differentiate some of your characters. Thank you guys so much for watching all the way to the end. I love you very much, and we recently just hit 2 million subscribers. That's kind of crazy. There's 2 million of you guys that find me somewhat entertaining. Look, I don't get it. I don't understand it. There's probably something a little bit wrong with you, but I love whatever is wrong with you guys.